it's John Woods from Insurance Navigators. I'm here with Matt Snyder from Snyder Elder Law. Thanks for being with us, Matt.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
So, can you explain what elder law is?
Sure. That's probably the number one question we get. What is elder law, right? I explain it this way to everyone. All elder law attorneys are estate planners. Not all estate planners are elder law attorneys. So what I mean by that, estate planning is usually what happens at death. Who gets my things when I'm gone, right? Well, if hopefully that's not for many, many years, decades in the future. So what happens between now and that point? What if all these things in life change? What if health changes, family dynamics change? The estate plan is just planning for who gets it when you're gone. Well, if you have a long-term care crisis or something where there's really expensive needs before death and you spend everything, and that estate plan is only planning who gets it, doesn't matter, right? There's nothing to be given. So elder law planning is more focused on protecting what people worked for their whole lives, whether that's proactively or in more of a crisis situation where there's an imminent need or we're already receiving some type of long-term care. There's plans that we can put in place from the elder law perspective that actually makes people's estates remain with them as much as possible for as long as possible so that they stay on that track that they were on of who's going to get what later on. We actually can make sure that that's a more solidified plan by addressing that long-term care piece.
Okay. So, one of the things that I like about you and everybody that I've talked to, done this little interview with is you're very educational up front.
Yeah,
Because a lot of people, the commonality that you and I have with the others in our group is that we all deal with people as they're getting older.
sure,
And you made a comment a few minutes ago when we were talking that, people don't know what they don't know.
sure.
So one of the reasons I'm having this conversation with you is to encourage all of my clients to have this conversation now,
Hmm.
not, don't wait. So when you sit down with somebody who's new,
Yeah.
t tell us a little bit about that process. Where do you start?
Yeah, so it's a good question because and this is actually the way I start, so I'll just jump right in. Like I usually flip the table for people and talk about what a normal estate planning meeting is like. Say people walk in and they say we need a will. And that's the tone of the meeting, and the meeting ends up lasting about 15 minutes because that's all that gets talked about. At no point in that situation did myself as the attorney provide any advice, ask any follow-up questions. They said they need a will, and I'm like, sure, I can do that. So I get people who ask that to start, and I turn around and I ask them, what goals are you looking to accomplish? What issues are you worried about? What kind of things are keeping you up at night that you want to make sure you have some kind of plan for? Because when you start looking at the question from that more zoomed out view, then we can start determining, well, then what makes sense to address those needs, right? Sometimes it will work. Sometimes that's not the be all end all of someone's plan. So we go through, I start with that question. They kind of give me, we sort of meander through their story and what their um, concerns are, what they've heard from other people. They're not sure if this works for them. So our complimentary consultation goes through that whole roadmap. So we give everybody a questionnaire beforehand. We ask them to just fill it out and bring it with them. And then we use that. It's 4 pages, 5 pages, depending on the type of meeting we have. But we use that to kind of get some personal information, some family dynamic history, rough idea of just what someone owns as far as assets, because I want the conversation to be specific to their situation. And I usually wind up, if we're in my office or if I'm somewhere, I either have our office, we have a whiteboard, I'll have a notebook paper where I'm usually drawing out things as I'm talking because I think a lot of people are visual learners in addition to just listening. So I do a lot of pictures. Hey, these are your assets, right? This is what you showed me. This is what a long-term care, a nursing home stay could look like. And if you extrapolate that out over months or years, this is how quickly we can exhaust our resources.
Mhm.
Here's now the kind of planning that we can do to address those needs. And so I talk about all of the different pieces that usually they hear a few of them. I try to bring everything into one conversation. I think I've said this to you before, John. Like, I always explain to people the idea of playing a game of solitaire, but only ever playing with half the deck of cards. You can play all day. You can just sit at the table and just, keep flipping those cards over. You're like, I'm never winning. I mean, I'm having fun, I guess, but I'm not getting all of those cards up to the top level. That's what I've seen a lot of people in this kind of situation. And that's usually just about everyone in retirement, approaching retirement, post-retirement, they only know bits and pieces. So I try to flip over all the cards on the table in that initial meeting and I kind of overload them. I mean, they're exhausted like mentally by the end of that meeting, but I want to get through everything and explain this is the path that we're all on if we don't do something for ourselves. This is then an option that we can put in place to fix those concerns that you started with when you walked in. So I try to bring it all full circle back to what they brought up. But you're right, it is very educational based. It's talking through these things that they may only hear in passing or read about and just gloss over. So I want to make sure they understand it because what good is a plan if you can't explain it yourself, right? If you're like, yeah, I have an estate plan, I don't really know what it does, but you can read it. A lot of times I read people's plans and I'm like, that's not what your plan says. And they're like, oh, no kidding. I didn't realize that. And I say, yeah, this is what's
Yeah.
going to happen. And that's just because it's usually been thought of as a throwaway conversation.
Yeah.
Sign your will, get your plan done, and don't ever have to worry about it again. And this is not that kind of instance, right? This is kind of an important topic. This is what everybody has worked towards their whole lives. So, in addition to that piece of going through how we can help them at the end of that meeting when we talk about our services, one thing that we do for everybody who comes through our door to set up planning, um, the proactive planning is we offer them annual support. So they don't keep getting a bill, they don't get a maintenance fee. Anytime they reach out, they call, they email, they don't see something come in the mail for owing us anything. And we invite them once a year for an annual meeting. So just like they go to their checkup with the doctor and the dentist and the foot doctor and the tax person and all these places that, the oil change that are getting regular maintenance, the estate plan might be something worth having some checkups on it too. So we
Right.
do that as a part of it to make sure that it keeps working as their lives grow and change.
Yeah, that's great because, situations change, laws change, tax code changes, all that sort of thing. That's wonderful that you do that. The other thing, I'll just make this comment. There's one of the things I'll say if I'm talking to somebody about their Medicare options,
Mhm.
and they sit there and they go, "Well, I don't, is a supplement better than an Advantage plan and that kind of thing?" And one of the comments I make, which is I think similar to the experience with you, is if we knew exactly what was going to happen in the future, we could make the best plan.
Oh yeah.
And that's the whole point. You base your decisions on what you know in the moment,
Mhm.
but what you force them to do is to think about all the various situations that could happen to them so that
Yeah.
they know or they have a plan they can refer back to when one of those three or four things happens. So that's a really good thing.
We always hope that nothing unseen is going to happen, right? And that it always works out just the way we want it to. Somebody peacefully goes to sleep one night and doesn't wake up. Like that's the ideal. I've yet to meet any family who's like, we're really looking forward to putting mom in a nursing home, right? Like they don't come in saying that.
Right.
But these places are full, right? Assisted living, memory
Yeah.
care, nursing homes that they have people in need. And so we always hope for the best, but plan for the worst. If we had that
Right.
crystal ball, we could tell everybody, hey, based on your crystal ball, it's about time to get that plan in place. We just don't know. And that's the question that everybody should just think about for themselves. What are they comfortable with? Are they comfortable if they don't have a plan and they wind up in some drastically different position?
Hmm.
How much is it worth? Like, because you're going to just keep spending and spending and spending. Are you okay with that? And some people might say yes, like, because I don't think it's going to happen to me. And other people
Right.
might say, well, but what if it does? And that's kind of where we stand is what if it does happen? What's going to happen then?
So one of the things that I think people ought to know is they're in the situation where they haven't talked to you, they haven't really planned, they don't know all the options and things they maybe should have thought about.
Yeah.
And suddenly mom's older, mom has a stroke. Mom needs help taking care of her without getting too deep in the weeds. Explain what I call crisis management.
Yeah. So so I'll knock on wood real quick. Um, in 10 years almost of doing this kind of planning, I have yet to tell, I don't think any family that they're too late. Whether, so yeah, that just happened to mom, whether it's, she's been in for a while. If there are still resources that she has available to her personally, individually, there are still things that can be done to minimize as best as possible the spend down, that term that we always hear.
Hmm.
So those kind of crisis mode plans are a different bucket of what we do. We do a lot of that. It's just kind of dealt with in a different way because it's so fast paced and time sensitive. But our goals in that are to try and minimize the amount that someone spends out of their own pocket, protect as much as possible so that we can explore any other benefits that they might be eligible for in the future. Medicaid is the largest payer of nursing home bills. Medicaid is not inferior care. Medicaid is what someone's going to wind up with if they exhaust everything that they ever worked for. And so if the person across the hall is on Medicaid, but you have resources and you're paying privately, you're getting the same staff, you're getting the same service, you're getting the same everything, but you're paying tenfold more, and that's okay if that's what somebody wants to do. But we use Medicaid's own rules to our advantage. So we know about how gifting strategies could work. We know how the state penalizes people if they do improperly transfer assets. That's where that 5 year look back comes in. So we walk someone, it's usually either the spouse or the adult children, we walk them through that whole scenario. And we run a lot of calculations. I never thought that I would be so much algebra driven in my legal practice, but here we are. We do a lot of formulas because it's the state has the numbers, right? So they
Right.
run these figures themselves. They say, hey, you got to spend down to this. Well, how long can we afford to do that at our current rate? Unless you're earning $15,000 a month in interest on investments, you'd have to have a pretty high starting point for that,
Hmm.
right? We have a couple $100,000. That's not realistic. So we go through that kind of doomsday scenario of this is the default plan, but through legal planning that takes into account Medicaid's code and then discloses to the county everything that we do that aligns with those code provisions. We're able to protect pretty significant portions of people's resources.
Right.
And so when I hear people say you're too late, you can't do that, you can't, they'll use terms like hide money. There's nothing hiding about what's done. It couldn't be more disclosed to the county if we tried. We
Right.
tell them where everything went. We just use those rules that they set up and know how to apply them to get a successful outcome.
So it's effectively, the rules of the game, use those rules against the system, so to
Yeah.
speak,
We
and
play it better.
you do as much as you can to help that family in that
Right.
situation. So that's
Yeah,
great.
that's exactly what it is. It's don't hate the player, hate the game kind of thing. Like the state created the game.
Right.
Most of the elder law attorneys are just better at playing that game that they created. They can't keep up with us because we know code pretty much back and forth, right?
Yeah.
They're looking at a few things here and there. We're looking at it all the time. So, and that's another reason just for people to get themselves as educated as possible and speak with somebody who talks about these kinds of things. If you
Hmm.
hear somebody that just says there's nothing that can be done, you're too late, you should have started this 5 years ago, there's no more options. Like they just don't do this enough to know any
Right.
better. And that's unfortunate if that's the reliance that people are left with because we're here and we do that stuff all the time.
Okay. So what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
So our office number is 724-480-2496. As you can tell, we're in Pennsylvania, but I'm licensed in both Ohio and Pennsylvania. So I've been doing elder law in Ohio since really since I started. I was with the firm in Cleveland, and then I stayed out that way for a while. We moved back home about 4.5 years ago to the west side of Pennsylvania. And I just kind of lined myself up on the eastern border and western border, do stuff for people both ways. So phone is the best way. Also, our website, it's snyderelderlaw.com. So my last name, Snyder, elderlaw.com. We have a button that you can, include your information. It'll send an email straight to us. We can get back in touch with you, give you a call, reach, whatever contact info you put in, we'll get you scheduled and we try to make that happen within a couple week span so that we can keep people moving and not have too much,
Hmm.
falling, you know, 2 months out or anything like that. We try to get everybody within a couple weeks of reaching out to us to schedule something. Um, and those are probably the two best ways. We can do meetings like this via Zoom. A lot of my Ohio clients, I wind up coming out to them just because we're down in Pennsylvania. And so not too many people are going to travel that far. So I usually come out your way, John, to meet with a lot of families.
Okay.
But yeah,
That's
that's
great.
those are the best ways.
So to kind of wrap up, just want to encourage everyone that sees this to reach out to Matt. He knows what he's doing. It's very important that people be proactive as opposed to reactive and take advantage of this resource. He's a good man. Thanks for your
Thank,
time, Matt. Appreciate it.
thank you. Yep, take care.